Hello, and welcome to Soft Spoken Storytime, Episode 1, SCP-001. This SCP is awaiting declassification. The following files have been classified top secret by order of the Administrator. General Notice 001 Alpha. In order to prevent knowledge of SCP-001 from being leaked, several no-false SCP-001 files have been created alongside the true file/files. All files concerning the nature of SCP-001, including the decoy/decoys, are protected by a memetic kill agent designed to immediately cause cardiac arrest in any non-authorized personnel attempting to access the file. Revealing the true nature/natures of SCP-001 to the general public is cause for execution, except as required under Redacted. Warning: any non-authorized personnel accessing this file will be immediately terminated through Berryman-Langford memetic kill agent. Scrolling down without proper memetic inoculation will result in immediate cardiac arrest followed by death. You have been warned. Memetic kill agent activated. Continued life signs confirmed. Removing safety interlocks. Welcome, authorized personnel. Please select your desired file. File 1. Code name Jonathan Bell. Sheaf of Papers. SCP-001. Object Class Keter. Special Containment Procedures. To date, no adequate containment procedure has been developed to deal with the possible threat posed by SCP-001. This is due, in part, to the controversial nature of the item and debates concerning the necessity of its containment. This controversy is reflected in the item's changing object class and the procedures utilized in its containment. The current administration, despite charges of paranoia, has classed the object Keter, while requesting permission for a higher object class to be created and applied uniquely to this item, considering it to be the most dangerous of all known or possible items. The reason for this classification and changing attitudes towards SCP-001 are dealt with in the description and notes. At present, SCP-001 is located in a code-locked briefcase made of a high-tensile reinforced polymer. The room and the briefcase are monitored at all times by security cameras. The briefcase cannot be opened without unanimous special clearance from all current O5 officers. The briefcase itself is stored in a small, fully lit single-room off-site building erected in Redacted. Class D personnel are posted to guard the building, but may not enter without the aforementioned agreement from the O5 officers, under threat of immediate termination. This off-site building exists for the sole purpose of housing SCP-001 and is wired for detonation in any emergency. It is the opinion of the current administration that SCP-001 represents the greatest threat to national and global security known to exist. Nevertheless, due to special circumstances regarding its mode of function, further research on the item is disallowed, despite its promotion in the past, when SCP-001 was contained in minimum security conditions. Description: SCP-001 is a simple sheaf of papers stapled together in the top left corner. The top sheet is a covering sheet reading simply, "Confidential Report on Special Items, Classified." The number of subsequent papers stapled to this covering sheet is indeterminate and have ranged from 3 to 30. The report is unsigned and its origin is unknown. The first appearance of this report was on Redacted, when it appeared on the desk of Redacted, deceased. The report at that time described the living room, SCP-002. Shortly after reading the report with incredulity, Redacted was contacted by phone regarding said item. The next time Redacted perused SCP-001, it described not the living room, but biological motherboard, SCP-003. Redacted immediately closed SCP-001, thinking it was a different report, and searched for the original report on SCP-002. Not finding it, he again opened SCP-001, and this time it described not SCP-003, but the 12 rusty keys and the door, SCP-004. Redacted closed the report once more and opened it immediately to read of Skeleton Key, SCP-005. It is not known what the next actions of the Redacted might have been. At varying times following this incident, the aforementioned items were discovered. Insufficient research exists concerning the correlation between SCP-001 and all other known items. However, it has been established that every event regarding the discovery of a new SCP item has followed a report on that same item appearing beneath the cover sheet of SCP-001. The current administration regards this coincidence as proof of causal connection. Additional notes. Whether SCP-001 is to be regarded as an advanced warning system, or whether SCP-001 itself is to be regarded as the creator of the items requiring special containment, remains to be seen. However, the distinction is unimportant in the eyes of the current administration. The fact remains, no new SCP items appear unless SCP-001 is opened and read. It is for this reason that the current administration refuses to repeat their mistakes of the past, mistakes that have resulted in over 1,000 SCP items coming to the knowledge of the SCP unit. Arguments concerning the non-lethality of SCP-001 itself, its theoretically beneficial use as an SCP warning system, or its use as a progenitor of advanced biological and non-biological weapons have not swayed the current administration, nor have arguments criticizing the extreme containment procedures employed in respect to an item that displays no nefarious qualities and is not animate as such. Critics are reminded that these procedures are intended not to contain the item itself, but to isolate it from human interaction, which is to be regarded as the true threat. Although the current administration refuses to remove the object from isolation, barring special authorization, as noted above, past administrations have counseled daily with the item, and future administrations will no doubt counsel similar behavior. Nevertheless, it is the opinion of the current administration that barring the destruction of SCP-001, it is to be contained until such a time when responsibility for its containment falls upon future administrations. File 2. Codename Dr. Gears. The Prototype. Warning. Item displays aggressive and dangerous behavior. Description of item. 6 foot 5 inches tall, 97 pounds. Average varies by 5 to 10 pounds, higher or lower. Unknown age. Gray-brown skin. Maybe bruising. Eye color, milky blue. No hair. Emaciated appearance. Bone and muscle structure unlike any recorded species. Legs are long and thin, ending in sharp black points. 3 fingers on each hand, also ending in black points. Legs and arms are twice as long as torso. No reproductive organs, anal orifice, ears, nose, or pores anywhere on body. Head is spherical, very large in proportion to body. Neck appears too thin to support head. Mouth extends halfway around head, no lips. 21 teeth, spaced randomly around mouth. Many appear broken, rotted, or chipped. Eye is a large, ball-shaped milky blue sphere, presumably kept in the head or throat, appears to roll into the mouth when mouth is open, has no pupil or iris. Detail of current containment. Room is lead-lined and kept lit with floodlights. Temperature is kept at 98 degrees with 100% humidity. Room is sealed with a reinforced steel blast door. Outer area patrolled by guards with high-powered strobes. Anybody entering the containment room should carry a strobe and wear welding goggles. Any person attempting to remove the item or enter without authorization is to be shot on sight. Report. Recovered in Guatemala early this week. First reported as a demon, seen by several boys on a rural road. Appeared to be sick or injured. Boys reported seeing the creature panting and jerking its legs. Creature then raised its head and exposed its eye. Boys ran home, reporting to local law enforcement. Several reports of horrible roaring or shrieks from locals over several days. 12 people admitted to local hospital with severe radiation poisoning, and 7 reported missing. Recovery team assembled, headed by General Machoy, and dispatched from base ADRX-19. Reports to overseers from recovery team after standard containment failed led to additional containment procedures. Developed by Dr. Herman Keeter. Dr. Keeter was unfortunately killed in initial testing, after which creature was moved to ADRX-19. Creature appears to be able to create micro-singularities, using them both as a form of teleportation and defense. These singularities disappear several seconds after creation, but emit massive amounts of radiation and cause severe damage to the surrounding area. The eye appears to control these manifestations, as it has always had the eye exposed when creating a singularity. Omnivorous, it views humans as food supply. Creature shows signs of extreme fear and sickness in the presence of high heat, humidity, or bright/flashing light. Creature appears unable to teleport through lead and cannot form singularities when it is sick. When well, it is an extremely fast and cunning being and has killed several recovery agents with both its singularities and claws. Emits occasional shrieking sounds. All attempts to communicate have failed. Addendum. Additional objects reported. Overseers considering conversion of ADRX-19 to a dedicated recovery and containment facility. Reports may need censorship for reasons of security. File 3. Codename Dr. Clef, the Gate Guardian. Object Class Euclid/Keter. Special Containment Procedures. Because of the nature of SCP-001, no containment procedures are necessary. 24/7 monitoring of SCP-001 is to take place from a safe 10-kilometer plus distance from a predetermined location, Site 0. The location of Site 0 is known only to the current SCP administrator and the single overseer-level agent of Abrahamic faith, 05-14. Assigned to monitor SCP-001 from Site 0. Said agent is authorized to take any action necessary should SCP-001 become active, and is required to immediately alert the administrator and all other overseer-level agents should SCP-001 show any change in behavior, as this may constitute the beginning of a Patmos XK class end-of-the-world scenario. Should SCP-001 become active in any way, personnel are required to immediately consult the Patmos series of emergency orders. Decoding algorithms for emergency orders Patmos are to be maintained on-site at Site 0 in the possession of the designated observer, and are to be transmitted to SCP Foundation offices only in the event of SCP-001 becoming active. Foundation personnel with vital roles in one or more variants of Emergency Procedure PATMOS are to be advised to take the following precautions. To maintain good relations with one or more organized Abrahamic faiths. To maintain on hand a supply of the following: holy water, a rosary, crucifix, cross, prayer rug, or other symbol blessed by an Abrahamic cleric of bishop or equivalent higher rank, a copy of Abrahamic scriptures, Torah, Bible, Quran, and standard emergency supplies in mobile form, bug-out bag. In case of a premillennial rapture scenario, all vital personnel are to designate a secondary operative of non-Abrahamic faith. Said secondary operative is to be informed of the location of the primary designate's copy of Emergency Procedure PATMOS and mimetic kill agent inoculant, and is to be kept on ready status to take over the primary's direct duties as necessary. To maintain familiarity with all other SCPs involved in possible PATMOS XK class end-of-the-world scenarios. Description: SCP-001 is a humanoid entity approximately 700 cubits in height, located in an undisclosed location near the intersection of the Tigris and Euphrates River. The following features are known about the entity: a number of luminous wing-like appendages emerging from the shoulders, back, temples, ankles, and wrists of the entity. Although an accurate count has never been established, most observers place the number of wings at anywhere from 2 through 108, with the mean number being 4. A weapon, possibly a sword or knife, SCP-001-2. The weapon appears to emit flames at a temperature rivaling that of the sun. Based on spectrographic analysis, although there appear to be no destructive effects from the intense heat on the surrounding area, any entity that approaches within 1 kilometer of SCP-001 is immediately struck by the weapon and obliterated from existence. Any and all hostile actions taken towards SCP-001 have resulted in the annihilation of the attacker, regardless of range. See Incident Report re Indian Ocean Submarine Missile Experiment, December 26, 2004. SCP-001 appears to be standing with its head bowed in a gesture of supplication, with SCP-001-2 held in both hands, point down in front of it. Since originally recorded by the founder over data redacted years ago, SCP-001 has not deviated from this stance. Human beings exposed to SCP-001 report hearing a voice in their heads, giving them a directive which the subject reports cannot be disobeyed. The most common directive is "forget," which results in the subject walking away from SCP-001 with no memory of having encountered it. On rare occasions, however, other directives have been given. The most famous of these is the one given to the founder, "Prepare," which he has claimed formed the impetus for founding Data Redacted, to catalog and contain any and all supernatural and/or paranormal artifacts that represent a serious threat to the current existence of humanity. This is the organization now known as the SCP Foundation. Observers have reported that SCP-001 appears to be standing in front of a gate of immense proportions. Long-range photographs have occasionally detected what appears to be a pastoral grove within, containing numerous other entities of the same composition as SCP-001, as well as several fruit trees of unknown composition. Of particular note are 2 fruit trees of immense proportion near what appears to be the center of the grove. One, it is noted, appears to be an ordinary apple tree, although the other bears a fruit unknown on Earth, described as data expunged. It is the avowed belief of the founder that the gate which SCP-001 guards may be the gate to expunged. Based on correlations with ancient Babylonian texts and the Dead Sea Scrolls, in which case one can deduce that the entity known as SCP-001 may be expunged. Addendum 001A. Experimentation re SCP-001-2's effective kill range. 1. Experiment A. 1 Class D personnel instructed to approach SCP-001 as closely as possible on foot. Result. Upon making visual contact with SCP-001, subject is ordered to leave. Subject immediately turns away from entity and walks away. Despite repeated orders to continue the experiment, Class D personnel refuses to obey and is terminated. Upon termination of Class D personnel, all research staff involved are immediately obliterated by an unknown force, presumably SCP-001-2. 2. Experiment B. 1 remote-operated research robot guided to approach SCP-001 from the ground. Result. Upon approaching within 1 kilometer of SCP-001, research robot is obliterated, presumably by SCP-001-2. All further attempts at remote reconnaissance have the same result. 3. Experiment C. 100 pre-programmed research drones instructed to approach SCP-001 from multiple angles simultaneously. Result. Coordination is successful and all 100 drones cross the 1 kilometer mark simultaneously. However, all 100 are simultaneously obliterated by SCP-001-2. Designated observer at Site 0 reports that SCP-001-2 appeared to strike in all directions at once. SCP-001 did not deviate from its stance while this took place. 4. Experiment D. Wire-guided missile fired from a distance of 3 kilometers. Result. SCP-001-2 obliterates weapon upon crossing the 1 kilometer mark, simultaneously obliterating the launch site and killing all personnel. 5. Experiment E. Multi-warhead intercontinental ballistic missile fired from SCP nuclear submarine Nautilus. Result. See Indian Ocean Submarine Missile Experiment, December 26, 2004. Experiment F. SCP-076 and Task Force Omega-7 instructed to approach SCP-001 on foot. Result. SCP-076 refuses to carry out mission, despite not being informed of the mission's nature. Upon being asked why, SCP-076 replies, "No. Just no." 7. Experiment G. SCP-073. Due to the results of Experiment F, SCP-073 was not informed of his destination until arriving at Site 0. Result. SCP-073 approached the site on foot. Upon seeing SCP-001, SCP-073 became distressed and asked to abort. SCP-073 was ordered to continue. At that point, the symbol on SCP-073's head became data expunged. Experiment was terminated due to data expunged. See Addendum 001AA. Addendum 001AA. By executive order of the Administrator, no further experiments are to be carried out re SCP-001. No further SCPs are to be exposed to SCP-001. SCP-001 is not to be used to dispose of dangerous SCPs. Please see revised containment procedures for details. Addendum. On. Redacted. The following errant transmission was received by Foundation personnel. Initiate emergency procedure Patmos Omega. Attention, all Foundation personnel. The following message was received at approximately redacted this morning from Site 0. SCP-001 has left its location. The gate is open. They are riding forth. Oh God, it's so beautiful. The Lord reigneth, the Lord has reigned, the Lord shall reign forever. The Lord reigneth, the Lord has reigned, the Lord shall reign forever. The Lord reigneth, the Lord has reigned, the Lord shall reign forever. The Lord is God, 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 the Lord is God. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Because of this event's confluence with the recent breach of SCP-995, the opening of SCP-616, and the activation of SCP-098, the Foundation is required to immediately begin preparations for an XK-class end-of-the-world scenario. SCP-076 and SCP-073 are to be secured immediately. All personnel are to unlock and decode Emergency Order Patmos Omega and follow all orders within. Site-19 is to be secured and all non-essential SCPs and personnel terminated and or destroyed. Repeat, because of this event's confluence with the recent breach of SCP-995, the opening of SCP-616, and the activation of SCP-098, the Foundation is required to immediately begin preparations for an XK-class end-of-the-world scenario. SCP-076 and SCP-073 are to be secured immediately. All personnel are to unlock and decode Emergency Order Patmos Omega and follow all orders within. Site-19 is to be secured and all non-essential SCPs and personnel terminated and or destroyed. Repeat, because of the event's confluence with the recent breach of SCP-995, the opening of SCP-616, and the activation of SCP-098, the Foundation is rewired to immediate begin preparations FFFR and XK-class end-of-the-world scenario. SCP-076 and SCP-073 are to be secured immediately. Cain and Abel, my two sons, I am coming. All personnel are to unlock and decode. Behold, I stand at the gate and knock, and if any ants follow, Allah, KHAF 32425, 32424, exclamation point, $ at. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, and the fruit of caret and at pound $ at pound at pound at $pound at $. Signal lost. Upon contacting Site-0, 0514 responded that no such message had been sent from his location, and that SCP-001 remained inert. The transmission was initially determined to be a hoax. However, close examination of the transmission reveals a timestamp dated, data redacted years in the future. It is theorized that data expunged. File 4. Codename QNTM. The Lock. Object Class Safe. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-001 is to be kept locked, along with all data pertaining to it, inside the primary archival vault on Sublevel 1 of Site-10. The vault is a custom-manufactured, reinforced concrete and steel, vertical octagonal prism. See Appendix U for full schematics. With a 2,000 kilogram, 0.9 meter thick, time-locked access portal in the ceiling. The time-locking schedule should be classified and available only to Dr. Y. Mirsky. Access is conditional on 3-factor authorization, e.g., keycard plus fingerprint plus passphrase. SCP-001 is among the safest artifacts in the Foundation's possession, and these measures are primarily intended to prevent theft. Description: SCP-001 is a smooth, black, perfectly ellipsoidal 15.1 centimeters by 15.4 centimeters by 16.5 centimeters onyx gemstone with a mottled white pattern. Wrapped around its exterior, encompassing its equator and both poles, is a complex and layered fractal filigree of gold metal. The gold is sculpted into broad strokes at what is now usually agreed to be the lower or south pole of the object, but with increasing latitude, the pattern becomes progressively more intricate. Near the north pole, also called the lock or singularity, see Acquisition Report below. The pattern complexity progresses beyond the capability of optical or electron beam microscopes to resolve. Further investigation is pending advances in microscopy technology. The gemstone continuously emits a small quantity of thermal radiation, around 34.5007 to 34.5010 megawatts, in the microwave range. As a result, the gold filigree is warm to the touch. The white mottled areas emit fractionally more radiation than the black onyx areas. Other than this, SCP-001 is totally inert. It is opaque to all forms of electromagnetic and hard radiation, and so far, indestructible. See log for Project Pluto below. Its onyx gold composition is guessed from visual inspection, since the taking of samples for chemical analysis has proven impossible. Project Pluto Master Log. The following experiments have failed to open SCP-001. Conventional lockpicking. Brute force assault with hammer, chisel, sledgehammer, bolt cutters, welding torch, bandsaw, etc. Sustained heating to 5,000 degrees centigrade in industrial furnace. Artifact: reflected all thermal energy, did not increase in temperature. Direct application of industrial cutting laser, around 160 kilowatts per centimeter squared, concentrated on the lock. Artifact reflected all energy. Compression in vise, car crusher, hydraulic diamond face press, all destroyed. Application of corrosive acids and other highly oxidizing compounds, no reaction. Detonation of a plastic and solid explosives up to 0.5 kilotons, TNT equivalent, at point-blank range, no effect. Detonation of a 15 kiloton TNT equivalent atomic warhead at point-blank range, authorization granted retroactively by Dr. Miskey, no effect. Project Pluto is to be immediately terminated. Dr. Hack. Crossed out. Project Pluto is ongoing with the full support of Foundation resources. Dr. Mirsky. SCP-001 Acquisition Report. The earliest record of SCP-001 is in the handwritten journal of the minor Scottish aristocrat Sir Edwin Young, 3rd Baronet, 1611 to 1677. As was customary at the time, Young kept a cabinet of curiosities, a small room of artifacts of undetermined provenance, such as sculptures, preserved creatures, and trinkets. Young's journal included references to his acquisition in 1654 of an bound jewel of onyx and filigree gold of Finnels beyond rational statement. While traveling across the Mesopotamian desert, the journal indicates that SCP-001 was found buried in the ruin of a bitter-baited place older than days, or what Young took to be a temple to a fearsome death god. SCP-001 was found encased in stone at the center of 4 enormous runic stones. Young's journal indicates a sketch of the most readable side of the most well-preserved stone, but he was unable to read the runes or find a scholar who could translate them. Young's account of his journey to the location of the ruin is incomplete. It has not yet been located. Young's selections of curious provenance lay in storage for several centuries after he died. In 1805, his descendants donated SCP-001 to the Scottish National Museum of Edinburgh. The curators of the museum regarded SCP-001 as an ancient, fragile, and priceless example of ancient Sumerian metalworking. They therefore failed to discover its anomalous warmth, its indestructibility, or its impossible microscopic scale construction. They were, however, able to identify the runes in Young's sketch as Tertiary Sumerian cuneiform, circa 3500 BCE. Only a partial translation is possible. With loss and (we/I) a noun, a pact, probably a proper noun. On this ending finality, joy plus permanence, possibly protection. Mr. McCandish, who performed the translation, noted, "This appears to be some sort of incantation or spell of containment. A pact is the name of whatever is imprisoned within the gemstone." SCP-001 was finally placed on semi-permanent display in 1949. In 2003, Foundation staff observed that the mottled white patterns on the surface of SCP-001 resembled the cosmic microwave background, a pattern of microwaves encompassing the entire observable universe, as mapped by NASA's Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy probe earlier that year. Closer inspection showed the two patterns to be identical. SCP-001, along with Baronet Young's journal, was immediately purchased by a Foundation front organization and transferred to Site 10, where Dr. Q. Hack and Dr. Y. Mirsky performed initial routine analysis. Research continues under the auspices of Dr. Mirsky, Dr. Hack having recently left the Foundation. Young's journal also includes several detailed sketches of SCP-001. In one of the sketches, a small ornate object resembling a key is shown fitted into its north pole. The key has not been recovered. Just a quick warning before we go into this one. It gets pretty dark. If you have any sort of triggers relating to violence or anything like that, I would definitely skip this one. It gets dark, and it's not super detailed, but it's detailed enough to probably trigger you if you have any sort of trigger like this. So just please be careful with yourself. If you know that there's things you can't handle, please don't force yourself to. I can put a synopsis of I can put like a short summary of this if you're really curious, either in the description box or in the comments below without any triggering details. Please take care of yourselves, guys. File 5, Codename Bright, The Factory. SCP-001 is an O5's tale. Good evening, Doctor. No, don't stand up. And yes, I am who you think I am. Let's not make any more of this than it is. You know my number, and I know enough about you to make a duplicate that even your mother wouldn't be able to tell apart from the real you. No, that's not a threat, just a fact. Now, as to my business here, it seems you have stumbled upon something above your clearance. Well, no, stumbled is not the right word. Dug up, perhaps? Perhaps. And you are getting to the point where further digging would end in some fairly lethal gunshot wounds. This would be a sad state of affairs, as you are otherwise quite a good researcher. Therefore, you are getting something very few people in the Foundation ever get. An explanation. Yes, we were alerted when you first started digging into SCP-001. Every researcher who's been around for a while looks into it. Most are satisfied when they uncover the angel with the flaming sword. It's buried under enough levels. But then you started looking into the factory, and that is when I knew you wouldn't stop. So here it is, plain and simple. The factory is SCP-001, but it will never be written up. It was a choice I made early on in the creation of the Foundation, and a choice I still stand by. You researchers are far too curious. I'm not sure which scares me more, that we'll never understand the factory, or that one day we will. Ah, well, I'm sure you're eager to learn more. The factory was built in 1835. Back then it was known as the Anderson Factory, named after James Anderson, a rather well-to-do industrialist. It was built in, well, we'll just say America, and was the largest factory yet designed, a good mile across at its widest, 3 stories tall throughout, with a special 7-story tower by the front gate that Anderson lived in. It was designed to be the ultimate factory, capable of taking care of everything, including the housing of workers. People could be born, work, live, and die without ever leaving the confines of the factory. And work they did, on everything from cattle raising and slaughtering to textiles, to everything else under the sun. Now, no one knows whether James Anderson was actually a Satan worshipper. It's just as likely that he followed some kind of pagan god. What is known is that he was very exact in the building of his factory, and in the placement of his machinery within it. Survivors claimed the floor was engraved with arcane symbols that were only visible when blood flowed across them. But then the survivors claimed a lot of things. What is known is that Anderson made his money on the blood and sweat and sometimes body parts of the lower class. His journals indicate he thought of them as less than human, being put on this earth only to serve his will. Of course, at that time, no one knew about his predilections, and so people flocked to the factory. A place to both work and live at the same time? Well, of course people wanted in. Never mind the harsh hours, working conditions, sadistic security force, and all the rest. Factory workers were forced to work 16-hour days, work only shutting down on Sundays, between sunrise and sunset. Workers were not given individual rooms, instead sharing rooms with 8 other people, sleeping in shifts of 3. Medical attention was unheard of. If you were injured in the course of your duties, which most people were, you were expected to just keep working. And anyone too injured to work was dragged off by the security, never to be heard from again. For 40 years, the Anderson factory cranked out all sorts of things for people. Meat, clothes, weapons. Never mind that the beef might be mixed with human. Don't care that the weapons were forged in blood. No attention need be paid that the clothes were dyed with, well, you get the idea. Rumors leaked out, but the products were so good, why bother? Until someone got out. I never met the brave soul who managed to escape, but he managed to meet with President Grant, and in 1875 he enlisted my aid. At the time I was, well, it doesn't matter. We'll say I was military, kind of, and that my people were the same. 150 good men and some few women who were often given jobs that weren't supposed to be common knowledge. We've been cleaning out some Confederate holdouts and some of the worst things we found down south. So we did some research, didn't like what we saw, and went in loaded for bear. I don't actually remember much about the night it all went down. Most of it blends together in my head. I get flashes sometimes of the people chained to the line, living next to the dead, and damned hard to tell which was which. Children working underneath machines, the majority of the flesh scoured from their bones by the great wheels and cogs, and the other things. No, I'm all right. I haven't thought about that night for a very long time. The security force wasn't much of a problem, but then Anderson's creations showed up. He'd been taking the injured workers and, well, experimenting on them. Men, if you could call them men, with multiple arms, sewn together, some of them combined with animals, horrible monstrosities out of mankind's worst nightmares. They kept coming, wave after wave of not quite living creatures. I lost a lot of good people that night. And then we found Anderson's breeding pits. Girls as young as 8, chained to the walls, forced to be nothing more than... I'm sorry. Even today, more than a century later, the memory makes me see red. When we finally found Anderson, cowering in his office, we hung him from his tower window with his own entrails. As he died, he laughed, saying it didn't matter. We could kill him, but his factory, the factory, would go on. He was still laughing 24 hours later when we finally cut him down, had him drawn and quartered, and then burned the remains. The entire time he uttered blasphemies that I don't like to think about. We spent a week cleaning that place out, freeing the workers, putting down the things we found in the basements and many lightless rooms. We pulled out things that were useful, stocked them in a house near the gate, tried to make sense of everything. 150 of us went into that hell pit that night, and only 93 came out. By the end of that week, we were down to 71. But the things we found in there, my God, well, you've been with the Foundation a while. They wouldn't seem as amazing to you. But we found toy guns that shot real bullets, a yo-yo that would flay the skin from anyone it touched, hammers that only worked on human flesh, a breed of skeletal horses that ran faster than anything we'd ever seen, cloaks that seemed woven from the night itself, and let men access a shadowy dimension that... I get away from myself. We found tools, both wondrous and horrible, and we were faced with a choice. I gathered my highest-ranking, well, we'll call them officers, to me, and we tried to figure out what we would do. They all had opinions. The chaplain, he had gone a little crazed, thought all these objects must be miracles sent from God, holy relics to be worshipped. Marshall and his little toady Dawkins thought there was a fortune to be made here, making and selling these things to the highest bidder. And we all called Bass, due to his deep speaking voice. He called these things an abomination and declared and declared we should hunt down and destroy everything we could find. And Smith thought we should take this stuff back to the president. The only one without opinion was the old man. But he never said much of anything anyways. We argued for hours, days trying to work it out. Me, I thought we were sitting on a gold mine all right, but that we could use these things, these objects, to hunt down some of the scary things we'd run into down south, the other monsters this world had to offer, and use this factory for good, as a place to contain these things, find a way to make them work for our fellow man, or at least protect our fellow man from having to deal with them. I'm sure you can figure out what happened. The chaplain snuck away in the night with his devotees, taking a couple of small items with him. Marshall we kicked out when we found him, abusing his authority. He promised he'd get revenge, and that little Dawkins shit led the rest of the group off with some of the juicier items. Bass and his people tried to light the whole damn thing on fire, then just left when it didn't work. And Smith left to report back to the president. I did manage to get him to promise me he'd tell Grant the factory had been destroyed. I had big plans for that place. Of course, it was kind of hard to follow through on big plans when you only have 12 other people to work with, but it was a start. And it worked for a while. We had these amazing toys, and finding people to work with us was easy. Back then, going off the grid was as simple as leaving town. We knew what we wanted. We knew what we could be. Leventhal set out getting us backing. A simple invitation here, some well-invested money there. It all worked out. White and Jones set out getting us other backing. In our previous work, we'd found some interesting things about people, some secrets that powerful men didn't want getting out. And with our new position, helping keep secrets, we got more people asking us to deal with their secrets. Blackmail is a dirty world, but it works. Bright, Argent, and Lumine got to work cataloging the items. Light and Bright's wife, the nurse, they made sure we kept ourselves healthy. No, it's just remembering Light. She had such unusual ideas about hygiene for the time. Brilliant woman. Solf, Fleischer, and Karnoff dealt with training and troops. Tesla and Tamlin were in charge of figuring out how to take advantage of the items without making it obvious. We were amazing. The city we built around the factory, which we took to calling Site Alpha, was self-supporting. Agents, researchers, operatives of all sorts. Not by those names, of course, but those positions. We expanded. I'm sorry, I'm an old man. I know I do not look it, but the body lies. The mind doesn't always remember right. And sometimes I get lost in my memories. Things get confused. But the long and simple of it is this. We used the factory. It always seemed to have more empty rooms to store things in. Back then, that was the word for them. Things. No skips then. No. We thought we had the factory tamed. That's one of the reasons I refused to quit this job. If there's anything I can do here, it reminds people that we will never tame these things. Contain them, yes, but as we saw with Abel, tame them? Never. After a decade or so, we were pretty organized, the 13 original of us being called by numbers, not names. We knew how to make things work, and if a thing or two vanished inside the factory still, and the occasional D-class, what? Yes, we had D-class back then. Disposables, that's where the D came from. Had to have someone to test things on. Tesla and Tamlin were both very firm about that. But yes, sometimes we lost people who didn't matter. Dr. Bright, was fond of saying it was the factory taking its toll. You can't get something for nothing. 1911 was when it all went wrong. Things, we called them fairies, an entire race of things living beside us. They could look the same as you or I. The only obvious difference was an allergy to iron. Yes, that's why we called them fairies. No, you haven't heard of them. Why? Because it's the one time the Foundation wiped out an entire race of things, root and branch, and I'm the one who did it. We'd been hunting them for some time. We'd run into them a time or two before, come out on top. So when a certain royal asked us for help, of course we were eager to get them in our debt. We've always loved having people in our debt. We sent a team to help out, take care of what we thought was a hunting party. The next time we saw them, their heads were on poles attached to the saddles of the creatures the fairies rode. when they attacked the factory. It was horrible. 3 words, but they convey so much. I'm sorry, please give me a moment. I've never told this part to anyone. You should consider yourself lucky. And if you ever tell anyone any of what I'm about to impart to you, I will not just kill you, but everyone who shares your DNA in the worst ways possible. You'll think Procedure 110 Montauk is a walk in the park compared to what I do to you. We lost. The things came and they destroyed us. Rode over our emplacements, slaughtered our people, shrugged off our weapons like they were nothing. I watched my 13 go down left and right, just trying to hold the factory. And I, their leader, their friend, their father figure, godfather to the Brights' 4 young children, confidant, sometimes lover, always the confessor. I ran. I ran like a scared little boy, deep into the dark guts of the factory. I was chased by the things, always just one step ahead. I could hear them behind me, feel their breath on my neck, and I came to a door I'd never seen before. A bronze door, covered in Arabic script of some sort. I've never been one for languages, especially not the curvy bowl the Muslims use. But I didn't care. They were coming for me, and I threw the door open and dived through it. Everything inside was different. There was a feeling of peace, that nothing could hurt me here. The light was this dark red, but still felt right. My ears were filled with the steady thrumming of a gigantic heartbeat, and in front of me were the remains of Anderson. It spoke to me then, but I'll be damned if I could tell you exactly what it said. What it told me was more meaning than exact. It offered me hope. It told me that each of the things we had used from the factory, no matter what we did with them, fed it, helped it grow. But if the fairies took the factory, they would destroy it, and we couldn't have that. It offered me a deal. It could remove this event, make it have never happened. All I needed to give it was us. I didn't want to. I knew it was a bad idea, but then I saw them again, my family, my friends, dead by the hands of those fairies. I agreed. It smiled, and I found myself once more upon the ramparts, watching the horde of fairies crest the hill, my foundation alive once more. In my hands was a weapon. I won't bore you with the details, but we slaughtered them, and with these new weapons continued to slaughter them, everywhere they lived, everywhere they bred. My fellow O5s questioned my decision, thinking we should save some, in case we might ever need them. I overruled them. We moved away from the factory, shut it down, moved our things out from there. We changed the name from things to special containment protocols, focused on containing them, not anything else. The others were curious, but understood I had my reasons. I boarded up the factory, locked it shut, buried it under a ton of rubble, saying it was too dangerous. I thought I'd gotten away with it. Until I found a thing on my desk. One of the old toy guns that shot real bullets, and it had the factory label on it. I've sent people in from time to time to see what it might be doing. Last time I sent people in to look, there was nothing there. We keep finding factory items out there. I can't help but think of how many more we don't find. The people who use them and keep it hidden. I think back to the body telling me how each item used to give energy. How each item used gave energy to the factory. I never asked it. Energy for what? I don't think I want to know. What do we give it? D-class mostly. Where did you think all those bodies went? There's a place. Bodies are left and they vanish. Everyone thinks I'm a genius for figuring it out. Sometimes I have to feed it other things. Researchers, agents, they never know it's coming. It just reaches out and takes them. But in the end, we're doing more good by being here. Whatever the factory wants, whatever it is, we're doing good here. I have to believe that. And now you know. Are you happy? I didn't think so. Why tell you? I'm getting old, Everett. Should I die, someone will have to keep feeding it. Maybe you'll be different. Maybe you'll figure out how to stand up to it. But I doubt it. So I'm going to cut this up into different parts because SCP-001 is very long and would take me a very long time to record the whole thing. I will do the whole thing, but given how long I've been filming already, I think it would probably take like 2 or 3 hours to get all of them done, which would be a very long video. And my internet struggles to upload a 15-minute video. I can't imagine how long it would take to upload a 3-hour video. So I'm sorry if that's something you would enjoy. I don't see that happening in the near future unless I get better internet. So I'd like to talk a little bit about these first 5 and which ones I think are more likely to actually be SCP-001. So I think the first one, the Sheaf of Papers, sounds interesting. It does sound like something that could be the truth. It would definitely be something you would want to try and hide as the first SCP. Because it's either making the other SCPs or it's a detailed file of all of the other SCPs, so either way you wouldn't want people to know that it exists. So I think it's a pretty good candidate for being the actual SCP. Now the second one, called the Prototype, it sounds a bit too much like any other SCP to me. It's like a weird creature and it's scary and it, basically it sounds like any other SCP, and it doesn't really make sense why you would, if this was the real SCP-001, why there would need to be this speculation about what was real and what wasn't, if it's just like any other SCP. It's not classed as Keter or End of the World or anything like that, so it really doesn't make sense to me why it's in the list at all. File 3, the Gate Guardian, is the angel that's guarding the Tree of Life and Death in the Garden of Eden. It is classed as an end-of-the-world scenario, and so I think it is likely that this could be the real SCP. It seems like something you would want to hide the existence and location of. It does seem like something you would go to all this trouble for, just like the first one. I'm not sure which out of the two I think is more likely, but I think they are both just as likely, maybe. If anyone else has any opinions on this, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to talk about this with somebody. Make a case for which one you think is more likely. At least out of these 5 first, and then we can talk about the others in my other videos. So then there's File 4, the Lock, the Onyx Gemstone. Its object class is safe, and I don't really think they've made enough of an argument for it to actually be the real SCP. Once again, I don't think it's something worth hiding to this degree. I think just like the second one I talked about, it could be any other SCP. And I don't think for the first SCP, especially with this much of a distraction they've made, like guys, there's 35 files. 35 different things that could be the real SCP-001. So I don't think it would be just like any other SCP. So I don't think it's the Lock. So then File 5, the Factory. I think just like the Papers and the Guardian, it is a really dangerous thing. It's not classed as anything because the file is told as a story rather than as a file. But it is obviously very dangerous from the story. So I think it's more likely than the prototype or the lock, but I think I more just don't want this to be the actual SCP because the story is hard to read. It could be quite triggering for other people. I like that it's kind of like the origin story of the SCP Foundation, but I think maybe it would have been better to just write it in file form or just not include like graphic details. I guess I also just don't really find it as intriguing as the papers or the Guardian. If you like it or think that the factory is the real SCP-001, then that's perfectly fine. You can talk to me about it. I will respect your opinion. I don't necessarily think it is, but I don't know what I do think it is. I haven't read all of the files yet. I've read quite a few of them, but I haven't read all of them, and I know there are definitely new ones since I last read. The factory is definitely a newer one. For me, I'm pretty sure it wasn't here last time I read these, which also factors into the not thinking it's the real one. I know there's probably not actually a canon real one, but it's still fun to theorize, don't you think? I hope you guys agree with me. I've had a lot of fun reading these, and I would love to be able to keep doing them, but I'll only get to if people watch them and like them. So I know a while back, last time I was reading through the SCPs, I was looking for videos of people reading them, and there weren't a lot. I thought there would be a lot more. There's mostly just lists of people that have their scariest SCPs, their most favorite SCPs, and stuff like that, but not a lot of just reading them. So I hope more people are looking for this type of thing, too. And I hope you guys liked this first installment of soft-spoken story time. Hopefully, ASMR lovers and non-ASMR lovers have loved this. I wanted it to be open to anyone to listen to, but also nice and relaxing in case you would like to fall asleep to this. So I'm going to go. Keep an eye out for part 2. I will probably film it in a little bit when I'm going to give my voice a break, but I won't put it up quite yet. I'll try and stagger them. I really hope these get views because I want to keep doing them. Good night, everybody, or have a good day, or good morning, or whatever time it is where you are. I hope you have a wonderful day today or tomorrow or whenever. Bye!